Ethan almost cancelled 3 times before leaving his apartment. The message from his younger sister still sat at the top of his phone screen. Please, just give this one chance. Lily is an amazing person. Don't overthink it. He smiled despite himself. His sister had been trying to set him up for months after his painful breakup nearly a year earlier. Every excuse had worked until now. Work was busy. He was tired. He wasn't ready. The truth was much simpler. He was afraid. Afraid of another disappointing evening filled with awkward conversations, forced smiles, and polite goodbyes that neither person really meant. Blind dates had never appealed to him. Meeting a complete stranger and expecting sparks to fly sounded more like a job interview than romance. Still, something about his sister's confidence had convinced him. Trust me, she had said. She's different. Now, dressed in a navy button-down shirt and dark jeans, Ethan drove across town as the evening sun painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Soft music played through the speakers, but it did little to calm the nervous thoughts racing through his mind. What if we have nothing to talk about? He muttered. What if she doesn't even want to be here? By the time he reached the restaurant, his palms were damp with sweat. It was a small family-owned Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street, far from the noise of downtown. Warm golden lights glowed through the windows, and flower boxes filled with colorful blooms framed the entrance. It felt welcoming rather than fancy, exactly the kind of place where conversations could last for hours. Ethan checked the reservation under his name before following the hostess inside. This way, please. She led him to a cozy corner table. Your guest should be here in just a moment. As Ethan waited, he glanced around the room. Couples laughed over candlelit dinners. A family celebrated someone's birthday in the back. The smell of fresh bread, garlic, and herbs filled the air. His heart beat a little faster every time the front door opened. After several minutes, the hostess returned, walking beside a young woman wearing a simple light blue dress and carrying herself with quiet grace. She hesitated for the briefest moment before approaching the table. Ethan, she asked softly. He immediately stood. Lily, she nodded with a gentle smile. It's nice to finally meet you. There was kindness in her voice, but Ethan also noticed something else, nervousness. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her chair. She kept looking down, as if expecting something to go wrong. For a few moments, they exchanged polite introductions. They talked about the traffic, the weather, and how Ethan's sister had managed to arrange the date without revealing much about either of them. Lily laughed quietly. She told me you were kind. Ethan chuckled. She told me you were impossible not to like. For the first time, Lily smiled a little wider. The waiter poured water into their glasses and handed them menus. Silence settled between them for a few seconds, not uncomfortable, just uncertain. Lily slowly placed her menu on the table. She took a deep breath. Her fingers tightened around her glass as though she were gathering every ounce of courage she had. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she looked Ethan in the eyes and said, I understand if you want to leave. For a moment, Ethan wasn't sure he had heard her correctly. He blinked, his hand still resting on the edge of the menu. I'm sorry, he asked gently. Lily lowered her eyes, a faint, sad smile crossing her face. I said, I understand if you want to leave. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with emotion. Ethan studied her expression. There was no anger, no bitterness, only the quiet exhaustion of someone who had prepared herself for disappointment too many times. I don't understand, he admitted. Lily drew a slow breath and folded her trembling hands together. There's something I should tell you before this goes any further. She brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear, revealing a long scar that stretched from her temple down across her left cheek. Under the soft restaurant lights, it became more noticeable than before. I was in a serious car accident 5 years ago, she said quietly. I survived, but my face didn't. Ethan listened without interrupting. The doctors saved my life, and I'm grateful for that every single day. But after months of surgeries, this, she touched the scar lightly, is as much as medicine could do. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The accident changed more than my appearance. It changed the way people look at me. She gave a small, humorless laugh. Children stare. Some adults pretend not to notice. Others do. Ethan's heart tightened. I've been on several dates since then, Lily continued. Most of them ended before they even started. She paused, swallowing hard. One man looked at me, stood up without saying a word, and walked out. Another pause. Another told me I should have warned him before meeting. She tried to smile, but it quickly faded. After enough experiences like that, you stop expecting kindness. Ethan remained silent, giving her the space to speak. So now, Lily whispered, I tell people they can leave if they want. It hurts less when I give them permission. A tear finally slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make tonight uncomfortable. The waiter approached the table, noticed the serious conversation, and quietly stepped away without interrupting. Lily looked toward the window instead of at Ethan. I know first impressions matter, she said softly. And I know I'm not what most people hope to see on a blind date. She took a slow breath. So if you'd rather go, I won't be upset. Although her words sounded composed, Ethan could hear the heartbreak hidden beneath them. She had rehearsed this speech many times. Not because she wanted to, but because life had taught her to expect rejection before anyone had the chance to know who she really was. The restaurant buzzed with conversation around them, yet their little corner had fallen completely silent. Ethan looked at Lily, not at the scar, but at the courage it had taken for her to tell a complete stranger the most painful chapter of her life. He knew his next words would matter more than either of them realized. Ethan looked into Lily's eyes for a long moment before speaking. Then, with a gentle smile, he reached across the table, not to make a grand gesture, but simply to reassure her. Lily, he said softly, I didn't come here to judge your face. She slowly looked up, surprised. I came here to meet you. The words were simple, yet they carried a sincerity that couldn't be mistaken. For a second, Lily just stared at him, as if she were waiting for the sentence to continue. As if she expected there to be a but. There wasn't. Instead, Ethan added, if you'll let me, I'd still love to have dinner with you. Lily's lips trembled, her eyes filled with tears almost instantly. No one's ever said that, she whispered. A single tear rolled down her cheek, followed by another. She tried to wipe them away, laughing nervously through her emotions. I'm sorry, she said. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. You don't have to apologize, Ethan replied warmly. Everyone carries scars. Some are just easier to see than others. The tension that had filled the table slowly melted away. For the first time that evening, Lily smiled without hesitation. It wasn't a guarded smile or a polite one. It was genuine. The waiter returned, and this time Ethan grinned. I think we're finally ready to order. Lily laughed, the sound light and natural. I was beginning to think we'd never make it to the menus. Dinner arrived a short while later, and the conversation became effortless. They talked about childhood memories, favorite books, embarrassing school stories, and the places they still dreamed of visiting someday. Ethan learned that Lily volunteered every Saturday at a community library, reading stories to children who struggled with reading. She loved gardening, adored rainy afternoons with a good novel, and believed that homemade cookies could solve almost any bad day. What about you? She asked. Ethan smiled. I'm a high school history teacher. Her eyes brightened. Really? My favorite teacher was my history teacher. Then I already have high expectations to live up to. She laughed again. As the hours passed, Ethan found himself forgetting entirely about the scar that had worried Lily so much. He noticed the way she listened carefully before answering. The kindness she showed to every restaurant employee. The excitement in her voice whenever she talked about helping others. The quiet strength she had built after surviving something unimaginable. He realized that beauty wasn't something he had noticed first, it was something he discovered every minute he spent with her. When dessert arrived, neither of them had planned to stay so long. The restaurant had begun to empty, and the staff quietly cleaned nearby tables. Lily looked around and smiled sheepishly. I think we've officially become the last customers. Ethan chuckled. I guess that's what happens when you're having a really good conversation. She looked at him for a moment before speaking. Thank you, for staying. Ethan shook his head. No, he said softly. Thank you for giving me the chance to meet the incredible woman sitting across from me. Lily's eyes filled with tears once more. This time, they weren't tears of fear or rejection. They were tears of hope, because, for the first time in years, someone had looked beyond her scars and truly seen her.